without employees, you're never going to have customers. So in most cases, our business differentiation is really our business model. Cellular, a battery's a battery. While we've got really good, we got people putting things together using their know-how in a way that is unique. But ultimately, how do we deliver? How do we communicate? If we didn't have the employees, I wouldn't have customers, and I wouldn't be able to have the customer testimonies of how well our team's working with them. So it's really, I would say, now on the other hand, if you don't have customers, you don't have huge growth. So you need both. But I would say that the people on the team I would prioritize that and say that's the highest.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Do you think about teamwork often as a leader? Teamwork is something that we talk about. Maybe we think about it sometimes, but we take it for granted. When you have a really well-oiled machine, you have a team that supports each other, respects each other. They collaborate together without being told. Teamwork is really important. So how do you improve teamwork? Today we look at that very question. When you think about how to improve teamwork, it's more than just asking people to be on a team. There's many elements around it. And leadership, your job is to figure out how to improve teamwork. Our guest today is the CEO and founder of Nimbelink. They grew at an astronomical pace, over 400% in 3 years. They were number 1103 on the Inc. list in 2019. And the CEO I'm talking to is Scott Schwalbe. Scott is just someone who really believes in leading his people. We talk about the difference between management and leadership. Really important understanding. If you want to really be a leader for your team, you've got to go beyond just management, managing the work, managing the task, managing the data or the metrics. You've got to lead them. So today we look at how to improve teamwork. If you haven't already registered for the principles of fast growth companies, I've taken time to look at all of the interviews I've done and really create something of value to you. It's in 3 short pages, the 12 principles of fast growth companies. Just go to genehammett.com/principles and you can get that now. Now here's the interview with Scott. Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Excited to have you here at Grow Think Tank.
Well, yeah, and thanks for inviting me and thanks for allowing me to be here to share today.
I want to kick this off with, I've already shared with our audience a little bit about you at a personal level and leadership and what this interview is about, but I want to for you to tell us about Nimbelink.
Sure.
Nimbelink.
Nimbelink, yes.
Yeah.
We nimbly link disparate technologies. How's that? But at a high level, we're really focused on helping OEMs, helping companies, we're business to business, connect their machines and their assets and get their data. And we do that using cell phone technology, industrializing that, and then helping them attach that to their devices and pull that data out. So we design, develop, and deliver solutions based on cellular technology to pull data out of machines.
Well, as we discussed, Scott, in 1994-95, I studied the cellular data for electric utilities, wrote a book about it, became somewhat of an expert on how do you get meter reading data out of it using cellular products. And you've carried that torch on with many other aspects. I thought it was pretty interesting when you were telling me one of the products that you guys have, and I'm not sure where you are in the process, but determining predictively where the next power line pole may actually fall during a storm.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. I suspect when you wrote your book, it was 2G, the second generation. Now we're moving into into 5G, and the technology has just changed us dramatically to allow low power, to allow us to track things and monitor environments in places you never thought about monitoring with battery. because back when you were looking, the challenge was how do you keep the cellular working and make it remote with battery and last long enough to get a return on investment. So
yep, a big part of that was that, and the, not to get into the details of it because we could probably talk all day about this, but I remember it was the remoteness of some cellular worked great and was a great ROI because it would take you 30 minutes to drive out there to get it, get that one little metering data. But if you had a core central, like an apartment building and whatnot, you would never put that on cellular because you have so many people in one area. When you think about your fast growth, I love to ask companies that really have had this, over 400,000% growth, over 400% growth. My tongue tied today. But what are you most proud of? Is probably something else besides the growth?
yeah, it's interesting. We talk a lot about that, and people ask me, we're growing an organization and a family almost. It's our employees. I think we had 3 new babies in the organization that's in the last 9 months. So it's kind of fun seeing the organization grow, seeing the people grow, seeing the team really grow. So if I look at that, and then and obviously our customer base, the loyalty we're gaining within our customer base, the relationships that we're creating with our customers has been just a real rewarding to see that evolve. Especially as you mentioned, when you're growing fast and there's a lot going on, it's easy to get distracted.
I don't get a chance to ask everyone this anymore, but I have been pretty diligent in asking founders, and I call it the impossible question. But what's more important to you as a leader, your customers or your employees?
Our employees. Because without employees, you're never going to have customers. So in most cases, our business differentiation is really our business model. Cellular, a battery's a battery. While we've got really good, we got people putting things together using their know-how in a way that is unique. But ultimately, how do we deliver? How do we communicate? If we didn't have the employees, I wouldn't have the customers, and I wouldn't be able to have the customer testimonies of how well our team's working with them. So it's really, I would say, now on the other hand, if you don't have customers, you don't have huge growth. So you need both. But I would say that the people on the team is I would prioritize that and say that's the highest.
Hold on for a second. Scott just talked about employee first. Have you ever thought about which is more important, your customers or your employees? I know a lot of people get really dogged that it's got to be customers. And I get it. I understand the perspective. Customers are very important to our success. We've got to listen to them. But here's the difference. Fast growth leaders know that their employees are expected to think, empower them to make decisions, expecting them to innovate, be creative, really know that their employees are the most important piece and asset in the company. And so they've got to put the attention on the employee first so that the company as a whole can put the customer first. You want to make sure that you have this kind of chain of importance inside your culture and your thinking, because fast growth companies have told me over 94% of the leaders I've asked that question have said that it's employees first. Only a handful out of hundreds have said customer first. You may not value that. You may think differently, but I'm asking you to think about it deeply. Which really comes first at this stage in your business? What would have to change for your employees to feel connected and valued in a way that puts them first so that they can put the customers first? Back to Scott. It is an impossible question because you do have to have both of these things. But I see what's different is smaller companies, not tiny companies that are 1-2 people, but companies that get to your size, 20 plus employees. They really do put an emphasis on the people and how they grow, because they need them to think, they need them to be creative and innovative inside the solution. And we don't need them worried about all this other stuff. And we frankly don't need them to just do the work. We need them to really think beyond today's set of challenges, to be proactive. And that takes a different style of leadership. And as you get bigger, you begin to see employees as replaceable.
Sure.
But at your size, they're just not replaceable very easily.
Sure. Yeah, I think my background of 20 years active duty in the Navy and then moving to corporate working for an $11 billion publicly traded company, you definitely worked through that and saw all that and lived through a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, I know that you've worked with my team to understand what have been the kind of driving forces of fast growth for your company. And you had mentioned teamwork. Tell us what teamwork is for you and how that works at your company.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, in a company like ours, where there's a lot of product development, and then there's a lot of customization, configuration within our customers. So when we bring in a new customer, every aspect of our company is engaged. The marketing group's engaged in bringing them in. The sales team brings in the engineers rather quickly. Where finance is involved, and so if I think about a simple, what we call a simple sale, the team's very, very involved in that. But then also informing the roadmap, our next product. So we actually bring the whole team together every Wednesday and spend an hour walking through the current projects, what's going on, the state of the company, and so all team members in the organization come together at least once a week for an hour to collaborate, and then we just kind of identify the issues that that one group's not getting something done, because they're all meeting individually, they're all talking, but sometimes it's good to have everybody in one place. So that's been very effective for us.
When you think about teamwork, is it something that's in part of the core values of the company, or is it something that just overarches across what you're building?
I think it's overarching. If I look at the core values of integrity and trust, and there's obviously more behind that, and really a focused discipline within the organization, and then I look at humble confidence is an interesting value, because we have a number of very smart, intelligent, hardworking people, and as we spend a lot of time educating our customers, so it's good. We need to have that confidence, but we need to be humble about it. And then an integrated lifestyle, I think, has really been a focus for us, to how to integrate our families and everything, and church and work and involve all of that. So I think ultimately we don't have a core value that says teamwork, but as we think about all those things coming together, they drive to the teamwork.
When you think about your job as a leader to create the right team and select the right people, I know you've learned some lessons along this journey. What lesson sticks out the most is kind of very important for the growth of your company?
Yeah, you had mentioned the people. I mean, when you start creating a culture, it's very easy to move sometimes too fast, but sometimes not fast enough. There's that balance. But making sure that the people that we're bringing in are individuals that can actually fit within the culture. And just this summer now we're hiring some interns, and even the intern hiring ends up we select them, we go through a process, but before we actually hire them, the team members that are going to be working with that individual spend some time with them before we actually make the hiring decision. So it's just important for the team members to have input, and we definitely have said no to people if the team member, even though we have a critical hire, it needs to be filled, and if the team you just say, I don't know if that's going to work. We've learned our lesson, because we've said yes in the past. Say, hey, we just got to get a body in here, and had that mistake of looking at, to your point, it's a body versus the most important asset of what the company needs, because you tend to want to move fast. So I think having that, what we do is have the teams even talk to the individuals before we bring them into the organization.
When you think about culture fit inside your company, do you have the absolute process to give a culture fit diagnosis inside your interview process? Well, a lot of organizations evolve over time. And so if you haven't put a lot of effort into how do we ensure that everyone we're hiring is a great fit for our culture, here's one way that you can improve that. If you have company core values that you really strongly believe in, and I suggest you do, then you create questions that allow people to see where they are. You won't ask a question blatantly, how honest are you? You will get them to tell you a story, get them to give you an experience where their honesty was tested, and you get to figure out where they are in the spectrum. You get to hire people based on culture fit. I wanted to put this in here because it's such an important factor for success and fast growth. You got to bring in the right people, and you want those right people to have a culture fit and not just a skill fit. Back to the interview. Scott, when you think about your own evolution as a leader, how do you best, kind of receive new information and begin to apply that inside the organization?
Yeah, so I do most of that probably by reading, and as far as new information and looking, but then then experimenting. So if I've looked at through the years, and as I went, like I mentioned, I spent 20 years in the Navy, and then into corporate world, and start thinking about the difference between management and leadership. That was a key element for me to work through. But then start looking at some of the leadership styles that tie into my core beliefs. So when servant leadership is just becoming more and more important to me as I mature and grow. And we can talk more about that if you want. But just trying different things. We've probably, when I was starting Nimbelink, I needed to make some money along the way, so I was doing some consulting, and I implemented the entrepreneurial operating system. I have a book by the name of Traction, and
Right.
I implemented that at another company, and so it just kind of forced me to really learn that. And so we took that and implemented it into Nimbelink. So I think reading, talking to other people, and then really trying it.
Well, I can't let you go on this. You said something pretty big there, and I would love to kind of put a spotlight on the difference between management and leadership.
Sure. So as I'm evolving, in the Navy, it's pretty easy to call management leadership, because everybody's in the same vision, everybody knows what they're doing, and you're leading from the front. And in reality, you're not leading, you're managing. You're just basically making sure the tasks are getting done. And you might be the so-called leader with the title, and you're making sure everybody's coming along. And I went into corporate world kind of that same way, but you get to a point when you have number of people reporting to you, and you're leading from the front, and you're trying to manage all the tasks. It gets to the point where, okay, you're either going to drop over dead because you just can't do it anymore, or you got to make the switch to lead and help people come to the realization that of the mission and the vision, and embrace it themselves. Because management is a very critical aspect of the world that we need, and making sure we get the tasks done. But when I step back and look at leadership, and I guarantee I don't do it perfectly every day, and I a lot of work here, but how do we bring the organization along so that they're internalizing the customer, internalizing the vision, internalizing it so that it becomes their own. And then in leadership is really setting up the environment for success. We can't really drive success, but a leader can set up the environment where a manager, when you're managing, the environment's typically there. And so I think there's that whole environment of goal, of what the leader needs to do, and then selling that. And then that's what drove me to servant leadership is getting out of the way, get out of the front, and then really just get down to the back and build the organization.
If you happen to be on YouTube right now listening to this interview, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Let us know that you like it. Give us a comment if you can. Give us some details about what you appreciate in here, or if you disagree as well. There's some very controversial elements inside today's interview. But if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell notification button, and keep on listening. Lead with courage. I love the way you described that. And you said the word own it once inside there, and internalize. a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
My big message behind this and studying fast growth companies is what I've seen is one of the number one aspects of how companies grow so fast is they get people to feel like owners.
Mm-hmm.
The feeling of ownership as a leader is such an important piece. You can do it without financial tools like stock options and things like that. Do you think about that feeling of ownership across the company?
Think about it, probably don't execute it very well all the time. But as we, I know for a fact, like when we're dealing with customers and trying to get their product, there's a lot of pride when a product comes across the board, even if it doesn't have our brand on it, it has the customer. The fact that we were able to design it and create it and white label it and help that customer increase their revenue. There's a lot of pride and ownership in that relationship and in that success of our customer with our employees. So we definitely see that. We spend there's a lot of questioning. Why are we doing this? How does this help our customers? How does this help the world? So I definitely, from the questions that are coming, it's not just like, hey, how do we do this and make some money? There's questions on, are we really having an impact, and what's the value of doing this work? So I think from the questions I get, I would say there is that pride.
So I want to leave you with one last question. What might I have missed, and what has made a real impact on you growing Nimbelink?
I think you obviously need to be in a good market, and have so it's helpful to be in the Internet of Things market that's growing fast. So that's being a little lucky is not a bad thing. Being positioned, and then obviously having a good solution and product that fits in that niche is very helpful. And then I think bringing the people. I think if I look back in the growth, and I look at mistakes that we've made, I think is probably an area to maybe not hiring fast enough, not hiring, trying to stretch the team because you're trying to stretch the dollars and you want to make sure you're profitable, but then you end up, if you go too far, we've had that experience where all of a sudden, I've burnt out myself, my team members, what's going on because we didn't actually bring people in higher enough. So I also believe you want to get the right people in the right seats at the right time. I think our growth was, we were able to grow because we did bring people in, a little ahead of time in some places, but we made that mistake and it slowed down our growth. So I think the other thing is, how can you slow your growth? And that's been a risk for us, and not hiring the right people and getting them in fast enough is a challenge also.
Scott, thanks for being here on the podcast, sharing your wisdom.
All right. Thanks for having me.
I love interviews. We get to talk to people about their leadership styles, where they've made mistakes, where things have had to improve and shift. Today was no different. Talking about how to improve teamwork was something that I have been wanting to do for a while. I just had to find the right leader to talk to. When you think about growing your team fast, how do you as a leader engage others to be more team players? What's the most important elements behind that? Well, there's a lot to it. One of the core areas that you often overlook is how do you have to change as a leader to be the leader that engages teamwork? I know that you think that you've got everything covered and maybe you've got so much on your plate you have no idea how you would have time for this, but you have to take time to think about the people, think about the culture. I work with leaders in the defining moments of their own growth. Sometimes I hear that people realize they've gotten to a point of their success where they have become complacent. I'm here to tell you, I'm here to guide you to the next level. I'd love to support you and understand you through that. Make sure you reach out to me, gene@genehammett.com. And if you want to get those principles I mentioned in the very earlier, make sure you go to genehammett.com/principles to get the 12 principles of fast growth. Don't forget to share this episode with a friend. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.